Got it. Great. So it is 9:30. We're going to get the meeting started. Good morning to everyone. And welcome. I'm Charlene Zarate, and welcome to Live from Western New York. Our Western New York leadership team is live this morning as well. And we have Lou Alimo, we have Kathy Bianchi, Matthew Whitehead, and Ken Winowski from First Priority Mortgage. And we're so excited to be here with all of you today. Hope everyone's enjoying this beautiful fall weather.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah, it feels like 10:30, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce our new agents who have joined us at Howard Hanna. We have agents who have joined us in the last 30 days, and then we also have agents who have joined us in the last week. I'm not seeing it on the screen though, Lisa.
You're not?
No,
Screen is frozen on the last listing.
we're still on that last listing.
Oh, I am so sorry.
That's-
Okay. Hang on one second.
No problem.
How's that?
That's perfect.
Okay.
So we have Joanne Eckert from Grand Island, Michael Incardona from Amherst, Larry Henderson from Lewiston, Lucas Waters from Lewiston, and Kyle McCann from Canandaigua that joined us just in the last week. So welcome to all of you. And then of course, we have on our screen everyone who's joined Howard Hanna in the Western New York area in the last 30 days. So welcome to all of you. We wish you the best with your real estate career. And I'm sure that all of your offices will give you absolutely fabulous support, and we will as well as a leadership team. I'd like to now just share with you a little bit about what our team's been working on. And our focus has been to bring you more content and more value during this time that we have together. Our podcast is evolving, and based on input that you've given us, our goal is to bring you weekly updated information so you can approach the week ahead with information that's very relative and specific to our local market. So based on input that we're getting, our agents are saying, you're all saying that you'd like a little bit more time on a specific topic so that we can dive into it a little bit more. We were trying to, jump around and give you bits of information here and there to follow up with at your meeting. But our focus now is going to be to really give you, more in-depth information. So this week, I'm delighted to share with you that our co-host is going to be Matthew Whitehead. So I think we're in for a real treat between Matthew and Ken sharing great information on the market. So good morning, Matthew. We're ready for you.
All right. I think we're going to start with a theme here today. So Lisa, if you would be so kind to go to the quote, we're going to start with a quote. And I think that it's going to set the stage for where we're going today. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That's Dr. Wayne Dyer. And I think that what's happening right now is that there's so many different perspectives out there. And it's really easy. You look at that little cartoon. From one perspective, it looks like 7. From the other perspective, it looks like 5. And again, they're both potentially right. And I think where we're getting stuck is that there is so much information and so many perspectives that people are just freezing. So I want to go into the next slide, if you wouldn't mind, Lisa. So you got these fast facts where these rates are really hurting us. If you look at it, let's take a $250,000 list price house, put 20% down. You got a $200,000 mortgage, 30-year loan at 7% with 10 grand in taxes and insurance. So your payment's about $2,163. And what we're hearing is like the rates. Oh my God, the 7%. Let's go back in time to last year where we were seeing multiple offers. Buyers were waiving their rights. We were seeing $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 over asking. So Lisa, will you click the mouse again and go to the next little. So again, 250,000 list price. Let's say that somebody pays 60,000 over. So it's 310,000. They got a mortgage amount of 248,000, but it's at 5%. Payments $2,164.65. So what's that difference? 7 cents. So Lisa, give me one more click. Oh, see how we did that? So if you look at that, we're seeing the rates move and people are they're freaking out about the rates. But if you look at it, the environment that we were in, we were overpaying for properties. And with that, people were waiving their rights. They were saying we won't have inspections. Then they were killing deals after the fact. They were using their final walkthroughs as their inspections and trying to get out of transactions. So I think that what we're seeing is just components. You're looking at little components that are going to make a big difference. The other thing that I think is interesting, since April 2nd of 1971 until 1993, rates were over 7%. And then rates went to 6.97% for 2 months, and then they went back over 7%. And then rates went into the sixes in 1999. We didn't see a 5% until 2008. And then the first 4 was in 2009, the first 3%, 2011, and the first 2 was in 2022. So, we've been spoiled with some low rates, but what we're seeing right now, if you look at the behavior in the last year or two and look at what we're doing, you're kind of seeing a shift of right sizing, and it's only focused on one component. So I just want to give you that perspective because I keep hearing in the media about these rates and about, oh my God, this is a crisis. And if 20 years, highest it's ever been. And I really think if we look at perspective, you'll see a different way to look at it. So what's coming up next, Lisa? I need my slide here. Am I just talking? Okay, leave that there. So what I do want to talk about is fear, because we talked about kind of what's happening in the marketplace right now. And I want to break down fear into kind of 2 perspectives. One is general fear, where I'm scared about this, I'm scared about that, I'm scared about what's happening in the economy, I'm scared about gas prices. General fear of things you can't control or you have little influence to control. That's kind of general fear. Then there's specialized or categorical fear, where that's maybe in a specialty. So like investing, for example, someone says, I'm very scared of investing. I don't understand it. I don't know what it means. I don't know what all these little components are. So if I'm going to get in a conversation about investing, I might have a lot of fear because I have very little knowledge and it seems very complicated. So real estate falls into that category, where real estate is a specialized area, but it impacts everybody, because real estate is a fundamental human need. Everybody has a fundamental need for shelter. So what's interesting is that it impacts everybody. Everybody wants to discuss it, but it's such a specialized topic that people kind of get scared about it. What's interesting, if we all studied real estate every day, every hour to the day we die, we will not know everything there is to know about real estate. And you think about that, that's scary because we do this for a living. And if we practice this every single day, we'll never know everything there is to know about real estate. How do you think that feels to the consumer that doesn't practice this? They don't know what we're talking about, and we are in a specialized field. So for those consumers, it is very scary. It's very heavy for them to kind of say, what's going on? What's good about it for us is that it keeps getting more and more complex. And what's good about that is that creates job security, number one, which I think is fantastic. But as things get more confusing and more complex, people tend to procrastinate because of that. And as we are seeing the market shift and we are seeing people scared, what we need to do is focus on better consultation and better communication. It's part of our mission and vision and a part of our values that we help people navigate through the complex real estate transaction. So it's kind of good that it is complex, if we're being honest, because we get to help people. But what I want you to think about throughout this is, are you going to incorporate these pieces into your consultation? So I'm going to go through a couple fears of sellers and buyers. And what's interesting is that the National Association of Realtors every year does national survey, and they survey home buyers and they survey home sellers, and they start looking for patterns. They start to see what people are leaning towards, what they like, what they don't like, et cetera. And what they found is that there are consistencies in their fears on both the selling and the buying side. So there are 3 main fears to sellers, and there are 4 main fears to buyers. So as I go through them, I want you to think, when I sit down with a seller, do I address these? Do I alleviate them? Do I have tools and resources to speak to them? Let's say that somebody asks me about them. Do I have a way to combat them? So think about that as we go through it. And if you haven't, we'll talk about where to go from there. But 3 biggest fears of sellers. So Lisa, if you could click on it for me. The first one is they don't want to give the property away. We see that all the time, people just giving houses away, right? We see that every day. So it's a very legitimate concern. When they say it, they really mean that they don't want to sell it too cheap. So again, if I put it on the market for X, I don't want to go lower than that because I really expect that I'm going to hit that point. So when a seller's listing a property, they're really concerned about strategy. If you don't have the right strategy to get the right return, they're concerned. And if we look at buyers or no, sellers in general, take sellers. What does a seller really want? A seller wants to sell their property for the most amount of money on their timeline with the least amount of challenges. That hasn't changed over time, right? And buyers kind of the same thing. A buyer wants to buy the most house that they can for the least amount of money that they can on their timeline with the least amount of challenges. That hasn't changed over time. So what's great about that is that the motivation tends to stay the same. Now we just got to focus on, are we talking to their fears? So the second fear, Lisa. Okay, so they don't want to, okay, what if it doesn't sell? So again, it goes back to strategy. One, I don't want to sell it for too little, but then I also don't want to have it sit. I don't want to put a strategy out there and then the strategy fails and then I look like I don't have a good product for somebody to come in and purchase. So I want to make sure that I do it right the first time. So as you're sitting with your consultation, are you addressing these two? What is the right price? Why is that the right price? What are we seeing? How are we using those comparable properties to have a good value proposition and then go into the best pricing strategy? There are only 3 pricing strategies so to sit with them and be able to say, this is the best one considering what we're seeing. This is why I think that it will sell quickly. This is why I think we'll get a good return. Are you incorporating those into your conversation? And then the last one for the sellers, they don't want to pay you too much. So as a realtor, they say, okay, we're going to have this strategy. We're going to do this, but I don't think that I should pay you that much. And what's interesting is that most people, like if you look at a for sale by owner, for example, a for sale by owner does not want to use a realtor because they say that you getting a commission hinders my walking away money. When in fact, we know statistically that utilizing the services of a realtor and a professional maximizes their walking away money, not hinders it. And so they look at paying a commission as a constriction to maximizing their walking away money versus utilizing a real estate agent and utilizing our professionalism gets them a better return on investment. So having that conversation as well. If we shift over to the buyers, there's actually 4 fears for a buyer. Now, the first one is FOMO. So it's called fear of missing out. So for example, I go to 123 Main Street. I like 123 Main Street, but what if something prettier comes on the market? What if something better comes? I don't want to miss out on all the good stuff that's coming out in the market. So that's a legitimate fear. There's concern that something better might come around the corner. And that's human nature. So that's kind of reasonable that would be a fear. The second one, I don't want to lose what I have. So I see 123 Main Street. I really like 123 Main Street. Something better might come, but I don't want to lose this one. It's kind of crazy, but that's also human nature. We kind of like what we have, but what if something better? I always want to be able to say, maybe this, maybe that, and I have the choice. So what's interesting about the play on the first 2 fears is that it creates a play between choice. The third one, if we look at it, I don't want to overpay. So again, it's really important that they say, I'm making a good investment. You look at the last year or two, what was interesting, people were overpaying. They were paying a price substantially higher than the asking price, and they were justifying it. Then they were justifying waiving their rights. They were justifying waiving inspections. They were removing contingencies. They were doing crazy things and crazy behavior, but they really didn't want to overpay. And I don't know if in the last year or two, we really focused on what does that mean for them. But that's why we were also seeing buyer remorse, where people were killing deals throughout the transaction because they said, I think I made an emotional decision and I might have made a mistake. So I want to get out. And the last one, if we look at it, what if something's wrong? So these are the 4 main fears of buyers, and those were the 3 main fears of sellers. So then my question to you, first off, did you know them? 2, when you're sitting down and having a consultation with a buyer and seller, do you address these? What tools do you use that Howard Hanna provides that you're able to alleviate? Like, for example, this one right here, when I talk about the 100% money back guarantee, the 100% money back guarantee covers 3 of these. And then in the contract, a home inspection covers the other one, or a home warranty covers the other one. So all 4 of these, based on the tools and resources and the way that I consult, alleviates these fears for a buyer. And so when you're sitting down and having consultation, are you addressing these things? Because people, they will purchase emotionally and then they'll justify their decisions logically later. So what we want to do is play to the emotional component, sit down, have good conversation, and make sure that we're addressing where those fears are. Because if somebody's coming in and they're emotionally driven, they're going to be constricted and restricted from moving forward. The other thing that I think is important, and I'll finish kind of on this, and I'm sorry, I made notes, but I don't read them. Here's what's interesting. If I was a brand new agent right now, one of the things that I would do is be reaching out to the people in my sphere of influence. We're hearing this big buzz about leads. Statistically speaking, cold leads is a conversion ratio of 2,000 to 1, which means I got to reach out to 2,000 people before I get one conversion. Where your sphere and your warm leads, that conversion ratio is 3 to 2. So your statistics are a lot better to talk to the people that are close to you, that know you, that you have a good relationship with. Now, the caveat to that is that you have to have something of value and you have to be able to be competent in what you're doing. Now, if I was brand new, I would be reaching out to the people that I know and like, and just be asking simply, I know things are confusing. I know that there's so much information out there and you're hearing all this scare tactics and you're hearing all this stuff. How can I help you? What can I help you understand? What are you confused about? The other thing that I might do, just because it will help you in your consultation, it will help you in your conversion, is reach out to the people to just share, what can I do to help you? And how can I help you understand? What are your biggest fears? What are you hearing? What are the things that you don't understand the most? And how can I create some clarity? And once you start to hear their answers, you're going to start hearing patterns and you're going to be able to say, okay, I'm going to use that in my seller consultation. I'm going to use that with my manager. We're going to come up with a great marketing campaign based on this fear or based on what I'm hearing from my clients and customers. If you proactively reach out and just say, how can I help? Focus on the outcome, not on the little components. I think that, again, the rates and all these things that we're hearing right now, they're components of the whole. It's not the outcome. People want to focus on the outcome. And no matter what the rates are, no matter what the year is, homes and shelter are fundamental human need, and people need them, and they need us to guide them and be objective and share. Yep, here's a good strategy. Here's how we can do that. Here's how we can alleviate that. If we try this, we could get this outcome, et cetera. So I do think that that's very important. I would suggest that you go to your manager and you ask them, let's say we have these fears. How do we address them? How could I incorporate that into my listing presentation? How could I incorporate that into my buyer conversations? How can I help this? If I know these fears, what tools and resources does Howard Hanna have that I'm not using? What tools are they providing that I could say in a different way? And please work with your manager. And I think it's going to help you get some clarity on how to move forward, how to create better conversion and be a better guide for our clients and customers out in the marketplace. So that's my little rant for today based on fear and emotions. But I do think that I want us to shift our perspective that it's not doom and gloom. It's not all about, crashes and bubbles and crisis. It's about consultation and representation and sitting down and making sure that we help people make great decisions through this really kind of complex real estate world. So that's my 2 cents. I'm going to take the time to pass it over to Mr. Ken Winowski from First Priority to give us some pearls of wisdom from the mortgage end.
Thank you, Matt. You hit it on the head, and you and I talked really briefly on Friday about what you were going to discuss. And I want to talk about phrases that we invent and things like that. But a couple of things. And when you looked at your example of 2163, and we keep talking about where rents are, and you can't get a 3-bedroom 1.5 without paying $2,000 to $2,200 for rent. So even that example you gave was fantastic. I once heard a quote by Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, billionaire, and he said he never made a deal on something he really wanted without overpaying. And I said to myself, well, you look at this guy's a deal maker and everything. You really want something. Who cares about what's called overpaying? So when I was thinking about what to say this week, I was handing out candy last Monday night, and this kid in the neighborhood, I think he's in about 5th grade, and I throw Skittles in his bag, and he said, oh, thanks, Mr. Ken. He goes, but what about this housing bubble? And I said, give me the Skittles back. You're in 5th grade. Why are you talking about a housing bubble? So we invent phrases and we repeat them and we don't know why. Back in the early 2000s when Alan Greenspan said irrational exuberance. And now I know Anthony Rios is on this call. He's going to say you Bills fans had irrational exuberance. So you could use that in almost any, but any field that you're talking about, when he was talking about it in the economic environment, people were thinking, what are you talking about? So I want to eliminate this word housing bubble. And I want to show you some slides that will share with you where we fundamentally are now, because that's the biggest thing. When you're in an economy where the fundamentals are broken, that's worse than an economy where we have fundamentals. We have a supply side inflation. We had a lack of goods coming to the market. So if we look at homes, and I'm the one in red is from the last housing, the Great Recession, they called it. And we had so much of an oversupply of homes. And if you look at today, our actually months on the market is increasing over last year. So that doesn't represent a bubble. If you go to the next slide, lending standards. Everybody picks on the mortgage people and says, well, in 2005, 2006, all you had to do is have, fog up a mirror and you could get a mortgage. I'll be honest with you. We had a lot of programs that would go up to 100% financing, a lot more lenient standards, but actually since June of 2008, 2009, we have been in control of our mortgage availability and how we look at credit and how we grant credit to people. That is a good thing. A lot of people say, well, why don't you get risky again? Well, we saw what happened when things were riskier. And the last slide I just want to share with everybody, when we were in the housing crash, and I'm going to say that word because that was the Great Recession, we had almost 3 million foreclosures. We are at the lowest level of foreclosures in the last 20 years. And what that means is we know that the federal government pumped trillions of dollars into the economy during the pandemic to keep it going. We offered, not we, but lenders and institutions offered forbearance where people did not have to make their mortgage payment. That saved people from going into foreclosure. So we have a very strong and we have a very balanced market right now. We need to not say the word bubble. So I think these 3 slides can display, just dissuade the myth of a bubble, because what we have is really getting into a more balanced market. We have had an increase in interest rates. There's an inflation number. The consumer prices come out on Thursday. If it's less than expected, the mortgage rates will trend to go with the inflation rate. So as inflation goes down, we'll see mortgage rates go down. But when you're making an informed decision, just like Matt shared, make an informed decision. You can't say, well, I really want to pay what IBM was in 1970. No, it's probably gone up thousands of percents, but I guarantee you today in the stock market, people are buying shares of IBM. So I want to pass it off to Charlene Zarate, who's going to talk about our Hannah happenings. And as Matt said, make an informed decision. Talk to your mortgage consultant, talk to your real estate agent, and ask, how can we help? Charlene.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Matthew. That was a lot of information. And I just wanted to remind everyone that you could go back and you can, listen to this broadcast over and over again. I saw a couple people in the comments requesting further statistics. So I just wanted to remind you that you can go to YouTube, watch this again, as well as, according to Maggie, it's in Hannah University as well. So I just wanted to also remind you that if you do go into the YouTube, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe so that we can get our numbers up, which obviously there's a lot of benefits to that. So thank you, Matthew. That was so enlightening and such great information, struggling with fears of buyers and sellers and helping us to better understand how to effectively communicate with them when we're sitting with them and they're, a little fearful about moving forward. and Ken, always great information. But we had a board of realtors in Buffalo election last week, and I do have to say that Howard Hanna was all over in the winnings, including new directors for the Buffalo Niagara Association of Realtors, Brian Miller. I see Brian's on the call. Brian, congratulations from our Tonawanda office. Marcy Delgatti, a new director from the Williamsville office, and Nan Melissa from corporate. And officers for the association include Margaret Fisher from Orchard Park will be the vice president, but the president-elect will be Vienna Lorendi from our Grand Island office, who will then move into the president's position in 2024. So great representation on an association level in Buffalo. I haven't gotten the Rochester information, but we certainly can celebrate our Rochester people. So congratulations to all the directors and the officers for the Buffalo Niagara Association of Realtors. And now we have our education update with several classes, including, you can take a look at those classes being offered, and including the town hall, the Power of One, which is going to be a leadership panel of select agents. And I think that that's going to be, absolutely a wonderful use of your time on Friday. So jump on that as well. So I hope you like the new format. We want to take a moment to say thank you to all of our veterans who served. We have a holiday weekend forthcoming, but we do hope that you join us next Monday for another call. And also, we do hope that you have an absolutely fabulous week. From the leadership team, we want to say thanks for joining us at Live from Western New York. Have an awesome week, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
I wasn't kidding, Lisa.